2023 has been a great year for gaming, and with great games comes greater bosses. At the start of the video, I want to put out a disclaimer. This is my top 10, and I am sure everyone's going to agree with me and tell me how right I am. Within a few minutes into the video, I am sure you're already typing away your disagreements with my top 10, which is fine. I wanna hear from you. So, without wasting any more of your time, let's get started. At the start of the year, if anyone told me that a boss from Spiderman 2 would make it to the list of top 10 hardest bosses, I would have said, what? No ways. As Spider-Man games are for a wider audience and difficult scaling is not their priority. At least that's what I thought. But here we are. This boss took me more number of tries than I would like to admit. Even with the combined might of two Spider-Man, it still felt like Venom had the upper hand. This boss has 5 freaking phases. Yeah, you heard that right. And it really starts to get tricky from phase 2, where Venom deploys his symbiote minions. But what makes this boss fight into my top 10 is the third phase, where this boss sprouts wings, and boy does it get crazy from there. Talking about crazy, at number 9, Annihilation from Remnant 2. When we look back at the history of new games and their sequels, oftentimes it's not until the second attempt that things really hit the mark. Even more so if you're copying, or let's say getting highly inspired from Dark Souls. This is essentially Dark Souls with guns. But boy have they improved. This game has a number of good bosses, but none better than Annihilation. What a finale boss it was. Annihilation is as deadly as is intimidating. His attacks are frantic, and many players may have trouble keeping up with its pace. Even on the lowest of Remnant 2's difficulty, this boss is still hard to beat. This large dragon possesses multiple phases and substantial health pools, making it a formidable adversary. In the second phase, he rips his head apart, and at this stage I had no idea who I was fighting. This fight takes place in a very tight space, and if you have claustrophobia like I do, this is a fight you wanna end soon. And what makes this even worse is that he keeps teleporting between worlds, and not only that, he even switches his own form too. This boss was nothing short of a nightmare, which I somehow just wanted to end. Now coming to number 8, we have an optional boss in Lords of the Fallen, Elianne. Now she's a true form of Pieta, and the steps required to find this boss is so insane that I am sure only a few must have fought her. So not only fighting her a challenge, finding her is equally problematic. The first phase is just an umbral form of Pieta, so it's alright. But it's the second phase which makes this boss the toughest in Lords of the Fallen, where the boss summons another version of her, which even if you kill, she would summon another one straight away. Two bosses are always hard in any Souls-like. Luckily, it's not as absurd as Godskin Duo or the Valiant Gargoyle Duo, but tough enough to make it to the top 10 toughest bosses of 2023. Now this is going to be a surprise for a lot of you, but this is my top 10 hardest bosses, and this boss for me, yeah, this was a difficult affair. This boss is damn hard to kill or even get a hit on. The problem is, the only way to deal damage is to first freeze him. The secret to defeating him is drawing him near certain red pipes and activating the respective panels to blow nitrogen onto it, and then emptying your ammunition on him every single bullet. And the damage window is so small, you end up using either shotguns or grenades to do maximum damage. And when you consider the scarcity of ammo in this game, yeah, you don't want to miss much. What makes matters worse is his moves are very difficult to dodge or predict. Claw swipe, ceiling drops, ambush, yeah, hated ambush, crawls through the sewer vents and attacks abruptly, and even has a tail attack which is very random. To sum it up, the creature's menacing presence and the complex mechanics elevates this boss to the top 10. Coming up at number 6. This man needs no introduction. the Sith Lord himself, Darth Vader. And what makes this fight even harder, I mean other than the fact that you are fighting the best villain of Star Wars, is that you fight not as Cal, which is your main character, which at this point has a variety of force powers and movesets. You fight as Sarah, who unfortunately for you doesn't have any of those powers, so you have to rely on your lightsaber skills. It's an old-fashioned classic, lightsaber versus lightsaber. Vader is extremely difficult to predict, and by the time you get to the last phase he gets really angry and does a lot of unblockable moves. And I was stubborn. I didn't want to fight the best boss in the game in anything but the hardest difficulty, so there were a lot of deaths. So if you plan to do the same,
may the Force be with you.
Making it to the top 5, we have King of Puppets from Lies of P. The bosses in Lies of P are no joke. Some of these bosses are obnoxiously difficult, and I believe that comes from over-reliance of bosses with 2 phases. It's tedious to keep coming back and doing the same first phase over and over again. And then we have something like this boss. Difficult? Oh yeah. But also the 2 phases make a lot of sense, because they are so very different and each phase has their own set of challenges. The first phase, yeah, he is unpredictable with a lot of slow winding attacks and keeps moving around the arena. Second phase is where it gets wild. The humanoid puppet comes out of the big mechanical puppet, and wow, the difficulty level moves up many notches. Now for the major problem I personally faced, a little ways into the battle he's gonna introduce a new attack where he sets his sword on fire before dashing towards you and unleashing a flurry of slashes. This was just unfair. But then again, I was playing Lies of P. Whether you are into Blasphemous 2 for the gorgeous art design, engaging combat, or brutally demanding boss encounters, there's no denying that Eviterno crosses all limits. The first of the penitents is there to test your limit.
For I am the first penitent, and you shall be the last.
Eviterno is by far the hardest boss in Blasphemous 2, and it's not even close at this point. Because of that, your payout of Tears of Atonement and Marks of Martyrdom is through the roof, making it feel somewhat worth the time and effort it's gonna take to defeat him. The first phase is pretty straightforward, in line with the other bosses in this game. The second phase is where things really begin to heat up. He picks up a sword from a dead body nearby, and this is when your dodge skills like double jump and air dash are really tested. And even if you manage to come out of that, when the boss's health reaches say 1/3, you enter phase 3, which takes place in a dark room with ghosts of all the bosses you defeated so far starts to rain hell over you. This is by far the worst part of the fight and extremely frustrating, cause on so many occasions after getting so close, I had to redo the entire damn fight. Coming to the top 3 at number 3, LuBu from Wolong Fallen Dynasty. Now he's the kind of boss that Souls-like players often refers to as skill check. Just like in Lies of P, throughout the fight with LuBu you are required to pull off a frankly absurd amount of parries. But what's really weird is that, you see, in most games, the hardest boss come right at the end. That's not the case with Wolong. This boss comes out of nowhere, bang halfway through the game. Why is that? I don't know. I guess that's Wolong for you. Souls-like fans will always tell you that greed will get you killed in any Souls game. That theory is even more true in this game. Fighting LuBu can be a war of attrition. LuBu is extremely fast with his swings. You need to keep hiding behind guard, retreating when you must, and even perfect deflect some of his critical hits, and that's when you're exposed to mistakes. And even though LuBu is an incredibly tough fight, it never feels unfair, and the immense satisfaction players get from finally beating him is well worth the struggle. That brings me to the runner-up in my list, Balteus from Armored Core 6. Now, a lot of you might disagree with my number 2, but guys, come on, hear me out. Armored Core 6 is my first Armored Core game. In fact, it's my first mech genre game. And when I first came across Balteus, this boss gave me a rude awakening, and no matter how many builds I changed, this boss destroyed me every single time. A floating machine with, I don't know, 100 missile launchers and even a built-in flamethrower. This boss tests everything you have learned. This boss was so challenging. FromSoft did the unthinkable. When did you see last time FromSoft nerf a boss? The thing about Armored Core 6 and some of his hardest bosses is that it comes down to luck. And I have no shame in admitting, after maybe I don't know how many tries I ended up with, I just got lucky. But all said and done, this boss taught me so much. All the learnings from this fight carried me through the game, and no boss was this challenging. My numero uno, who also happens to have the best intro. Laxasia, yeah, whatever the name is. Yeah, some boss names in this game are weird. From Lies of P. While Lies of P has a lot of tough bosses, this one takes the crown as not only the hardest boss of Lies of P, but the hardest boss for me of 2023. If 2022 had Millennia, 2023 had Laxasia. Now I know there's a lot of comparison between this boss and Nameless Puppet for the hardest boss, and you guys want to know a secret? In my Game Plus, this completely reverses. In NG Plus, Nameless Puppet becomes a beast. He was so hard that he almost made me quit the game. Anyways, coming back to Laxasia, in the first phase he can do this. And if that wasn't hard, this boss was like, nah, I'm gonna make your life even more miserable. It really made me rage quit multiple times. In this phase, stripped of her armor, which makes her even more faster, and goes all out on her element of lightning. And in my years of gaming, no boss other than Millennia made me feel this hopeless. So guys, there you have it. That's my top 10. And now I wanna hear yours. And I'm gonna respond to all of your comments. And if you wanna see my top 10 upcoming Souls-like of 2024, I'll link that one in the description below. So yeah, if you like this and you wanna see more, a like and a sub would be simply lovely.